Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us this evening from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Cecilia Berryman. Today, we commemorate the 105th anniversary of the sailing of the first Australian Imperial Force. In 1914, Great Britain declared itself and the forces of its empire to be at war with Germany. Australia responded by raising a volunteer army called the Australian Imperial Force. Better known by its initials, the AIF was intended for service in Europe, while a separate 2,000-man force was formed for the task of capturing German New Guinea, and smaller military forces were maintained in Australia. Officially coming into being on the 15th of August 1914, the AIF consisted of 1 infantry division and 1 light horse brigade. Hastily deployed, the first contingent of the AIF was essentially untrained and suffered from widespread equipment shortages. But there was a distinct character to those who had enlisted in those early months. They were keen. They had to meet tougher physical standards than those who later applied, and they would need to be lucky to survive the next 4 years of war. The first contingent of the AIF departed in a single convoy from Albany on the 1st of November 1914. Originally bound for England to undergo further training prior to deployment on the Western Front, the Australians were then sent to British-controlled Egypt to preempt Turkish attack against the Suez Canal, and with a view to opening another front against the Central Powers. Eventually, 330,000 Australians served overseas with the AIF, attacking at the Dardanelles, entering Jerusalem and Damascus, defending Amiens and Ypres, and swaggering through the streets of Cairo, Paris, and London with their distinctive slouch hats. Today, we remember the sailing of the first contingent of the AIF. We pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. We are honoured to acknowledge His Excellency Mr. Mark Molly, Ambassador of Belgium to Australia, accompanied by Mr. Arnaud de Saucy, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of Belgium, Mayor John Rooney of the Snowy Monaro Regional Council, Cooma, Mayor Bob Kirk, Goulburn Mulwaree Council, and Mrs. Jacqueline Wilson, and their accompanying delegation. We warmly welcome the members of the Callala Bay Returned and Services League Club who are attending this evening's ceremony. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and by students on behalf of the following schools in conjunction with the Embassy of Belgium. From New South Wales, Monaro High School, Cooma, Mulwaree High School, Goulburn, Crookwell High School, and Murrumburra High School. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Catapult Party, attention! Catapult Party, present,
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is earth by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Catapult Party, shoulder up! Catapult Party, order up!
Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him in Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Frederick John Thompson. Frederick Thompson was born in Wairarapa, New Zealand in September 1882. He grew up in the town of Fielding, where he attended Fielding State School, and as a young adult served for 2.5 years with the Manchester Rifle Volunteers. In February 1907, Thompson went to work as a member of the literary staff of the New Zealand Times. By the time of the First World War, Thompson was living in the Melbourne suburb of St Kilda with his sister Emily, working as a travelling salesman. The 22nd of August 1914 found Thompson in Warwick, Queensland, enlisting for service in the Australian Imperial Force. He was sent to Enoggera, where the 9th Battalion was being raised, and was posted to D Company of the new battalion. After finishing initial training, Thompson embarked with the 9th Battalion from Brisbane on the 24th of September on board the transport ship Omra. The initial port of call was Albany Harbour in Western Australia, where other transport ships carrying men of the 1st Infantry Division and the 1st Light Horse Brigade formed up to depart in convoy. The convoy left Albany Harbour on the 1st of November with a naval escort that included HMAS Sydney. A little over a week into the voyage, Sydney steamed off to encounter and eventually sink the German light cruiser SMS Emden. It was the first victory for the Royal Australian Navy and a source of immense pride for the men on the transport ships. Initially bound for England and the Salisbury Plain, the Australian convoy was diverted to Egypt. After disembarking in Egypt, the 9th Battalion assisted in setting up Mina Camp and began training. During their periods of leave, Thompson and his comrades saw much of Cairo and its surrounds. While in Egypt, the Australian infantry battalions, which had been formed along an old British model of 8 companies, changed to the 4-company system. As a result, Thompson was transferred from D Company to B Company, where he joined No. 16 Section 8 Platoon. In early March 1915, the 9th Battalion sailed for Lemnos, where the battalions of the 3rd Brigade made final preparations for the Gallipoli campaign. In the early hours of the 25th of April, Thompson was amongst the first wave of Australians ashore. He was, according to one report, acting as a platoon scout and was well forward of his platoon when he disappeared. He did not return to his platoon, and as no one had seen what had become of him, Thompson was listed as missing in action in early May. Thompson's sister Emily kept up frequent correspondence with the Base Records Office in Melbourne in an attempt to find information on the fate of her brother. Despite exhaustive searches of prisoner of war lists and inquiries made by the American ambassador in Constantinople, the trace of Thompson was found. A court of inquiry held by the 9th Battalion in France on the 5th of June 1916 declared Frederick Thompson to have been killed in action on the 25th of April. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Frederick John Thompson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
Catapult party, shoulder up!
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Catapult party, present up!
forget.
lest we forget.
Catapult party, inwards, turn! Catapult party, quick, march!
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you all for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.